Welcome to the SHOPO Hour on News Radio 830 KHVA.
Wow. Did your key fobs work? Oh, you don't have key fobs.
We actually had to sneak in behind the cleaners this morning, Rick.
Yeah.
You were asking.
Was it dirty behind the cleaners?
Mark.
We followed them up. We just followed them up.
I like the way you did the toss.
You like that?
Yeah. Mark?
Well, Rick, I'm learning from the best, right? We've been together now a while. I see how,
Yeah, kind of see how the sausage is being
There
made.
you go.
I love it. Yeah. Brother Steve Keogh, good morning.
Rick, as always, happy and grateful to be here with you and your listeners. Thanks for having us.
Welcome back. And Brother Mark Crecchio.
Happy Monday, Rick. Good to be here.
Yeah.
Could I say something before I forget?
Of course.
Okay, first of all, a little while back you posted a video of your son, doing his, I think it was at his his first UH, not last night's one.
Right.
Extremely, extremely talented. Amazing. It was an amazing video.
Wow.
And as a dad, you got to be proud. I mean,
Yes. Absolutely.
So then I was listening to the show this morning,
Mm-hmm.
and you said he had something else last night.
Yep.
Right? And then you guys went home, watched a little Star Wars, and you cooked up some steaks, right?
Yes, I did. Steve,
did you get a call? Because I like steak.
Yeah, no, I didn't get any calls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why.
We figured you would.
Thank you for the
No, but amazing. He's so talented, and congratulations to Zach. And as a father, you got to be really proud.
I beam, and I love the path. I tell the kids all the time that you two are blessings.
Yeah.
Any parent in the world, that's our prayer when we're parents.
Yeah.
And they're on their way. So thanks for that.
Awesome.
Right? Thanks so much. And then there's Steve's parents going, what the hell happened? No.
Right. Yeah.
We won't even go there.
No.
Leave that one be.
Yeah.
Hey, he made money with Playgirl.
I did.
It's
Reading it?
Rick, between you and Rick with that stuff, that's too funny, man. That's too funny. But you know what? The good thing is the demographic, I think, of this audience understands what that is. I think if we went a couple decades back, people would be like, what are you talking about?
That part is true.
What are you talking about?
True. Let's just jump on in. Brother Steve, how you been?
Rick, I've been really good, really busy, but really good.
Yeah.
So I feel fortunate for that.
On the streets, what are you seeing? What are your thoughts? Anything you'd like to share with our friends dialed in?
Man, when you talk about on the streets, I worked just last night, actually, in D6. I can tell you that officers with Honolulu PD specifically are doing a hell of a job getting impaired drivers off the road.
Amen.
I mean, that when we just talk about top of mind, I just came from work, right? And man, they do a hell of a job getting impaired drivers off the road, trying to keep everybody safe. We're averaging a few DUI arrests every night in District 6 where I'm at.
Yeah.
So that's just top of mind when we talk about on the streets. That's a big thing.
And thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, because it's the most perilous, unnecessary threat to others. Yeah. I still don't get it.
No.
Brother Mark, thoughts?
Well, it pisses you off because in today's day and age, there is no reason to be driving impaired between Uber, Lyft, and taxis and this. And it's ridiculous. And the courts and the prosecutors need to address it. Because if nothing happens to these guys, they're going to keep doing it. But there's options out there for these people to get home. It's ridiculous for this to happen.
Rick, and if you don't mind me piggybacking into this, if you'll let me, the men and women that put the uniform on in all 4 counties work really hard at what they do, and they love what they do. And I think it's important for everybody to realize that the contract that we work under is actually expiring June 30th of this year. Okay, it's expiring. And unfortunately, during the negotiation process, we now are having to move to arbitration to try to get our employment terms worked out. It happens, but we're going to be heading to arbitration, and the men and women that put the uniform on, our contract is going to be up the end of June. And we're trying to get
like 10 minutes away.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. But I'll tell you what. I was happy to hear Mayor Rick. He was on a show a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Mayor Rick said he felt that the police department was going to get a healthy raise. Mm-hmm. So we appreciate the mayor's comments on that. And I think, again, not to talk over you, it's your show, but, if your listeners may have heard, over on Maui, you got people in government and in positions of power and with a lot of responsibility. They're getting up to 64% raises. And I'm sure they deserve it. And we're going to support that. But we're hoping that when it comes to the men and women that put the uniform on in all the counties, that, it's one thing to say you support the police and, we back the blue and we do all of this. Okay, fair enough. Thank you for that. But when it comes to making sure that they can make a fair living wage and get salary increases that are comparable with other people that work in government, we'd like people to step up and do that. Just to share, sorry, just how my brain works.
I think the part you may not be able to share, and I understand because it's negotiations, but what was objectionable to the point that you now go to arbitration? And if you can't share, I understand.
I can't share specific, but what that means is our side and the other side couldn't come to agreement, couldn't come in agreement on anything. But if you let me, Rick, Hawaii News Now posted something on April 13th, and it was talking about how the Maui County Salary Commission was going to, give some increases to our leadership over there in Maui County, the top county officials. And I'm going to look on my phone here. Let me give you an example. Mm-hmm. And I think these people are deserving, but the mayor on Maui, Mayor Rick Bisson, he's going to get a 50% pay raise up to $245,000. Now, I'm not here to say that the people I'm highlighting don't deserve that money. Let's be clear. It's a hell of a job, but the increase is 50%. The county's managing director is going to have a raise up to $325,000. And the police chief is going to make $230,000. And basically, Rick, there's going to be double-digit raises for county department directors. Okay, good for them. But when it comes to the PD, wouldn't you think the PD is entitled to double digits, perhaps? How could you know what I mean? If the top 40 leaders on Maui are going to get an increase. And let me just say this, Rick. I'm not trying to come on here and, that Steve's with the union. He's going to say, I'm educating your listeners in all the counties that the men and women appreciate their support. Our pay's coming up for review. And we're just hoping that we can be comparable to what is currently going on. But it's some of these same people that are getting these kind of increases will say we support, but then, oh my gosh, double-digit pay raises for the police. We oh my goodness, like it's all suddenly now it's not even up for consideration.
I'll just state that they do not deserve those increases of that amount. The officials here on Oahu, when it was passed last year, did not deserve those increases. This is not a career position, politicians. Mm-hmm. This is a temporary service representing your community and constituents. Yeah. All I'm saying, I'm not differing with police officers at all.
Yep.
But I'm hopeful that there will be a demarcation between administrators and bureaucrats as opposed to exactly not only hardworking, but people that put their lives on the line for us. So the justification, I think, is more appropriate to say this is the job being done and this is what we need to do and this is what the compensation is in the grand scheme. But I'll state unequivocally, they do not deserve those increases.
I looked at the article, Rick, and I want to do a direct quote. So Maui Council Chair Alice Lee stated this: "We need, and tell me if this doesn't sound familiar. We need to be able to attract people to work for the county, and apparently our compensation is not competitive."
Oh my God!
Isn't that what right? Isn't that what we've said on your show? Like, hey, look, we have a staffing crisis okay, right now in the law enforcement community to get people. We need to be competitive. How many times have we said that? Right here. Mm-hmm. We need to be able to attract people. And now here's my thing, Rick, right? This individual recognizes that they need to do something different, and the Maui Salary Commission is putting this into effect. You say, Steve, I don't agree with that. Fair enough. I'm just simply saying that when it comes to the men and women that put the uniform on, this is exactly what Mark, Nick, myself, Bobby, we've been screaming that from the rooftops, that we need to remain competitive to attract the best to come work for our county PDs. So that's what's top of mind when I say that I've been working. And Bobby specifically, you know, when we do these negotiations, I got to give Bobby this kind of credit. I don't know how he does it. He works full-time in D8 as a lieutenant. Mm-hmm. Then he's also the president of a union that represents 4 different county police departments. And he's got a family, and he's got all these other titles. And when we do some of these negotiations, yes, we are together as a board, but there are certain meetings where Bobby is the elected representative, and he's got to go back and forth on his own time to do all of this. So we are really lucky to have a guy that's that committed. And I'm not saying that because I'm his number 2. I'm saying that as actually a union member, recognizing that we have a president that works ridiculous amounts of hours and time where it's strictly for love. And, man, I just want to put that out there, Rick. And I'm hoping that when we get a contract, and again, we didn't get into this profession for money. I've said that to you before, okay? We just want to be treated fairly, and we want to get a compensation package that will allow cops to buy a house, right? To buy a house and to have basic certain quality of life things that are going to make them be able to have a family, do what they want, and not struggle and have to get an in-law suite in their parents' house or inherit a house. For those cops that aren't going to inherit a home, Rick, and actually want to buy and do something, we just need to have a living wage, Rick.
Then those same people that are getting massive increases need to get off their asses and reduce the cost of living here in Hawaii, so it's not an ever ongoing struggle.
Yeah.
And that's why I take exception, not with compensation at all for our officers, etc. And I get a little riled up because to attract people, there's never a shortage of people for positions in government.
Yes.
Because it's not just about the money, it's about power, influence, connections, and further benefits for themselves and people that they know.
Yep.
And there we go.
Real quick, Steve.
Yeah, Mark.
The arbitration, is it cost or non-cost items?
Okay, so great question. So when we talk about contract, we're going to arbitrate both, Mark. Okay. We bottom line is we have non-cost items that are important to us. We have cost items that are important to us, and we couldn't come to terms. And we're going to move forward with an arbitration, and it is what it is.
Okay. Yeah. So my point to that was, I wasn't sure if it was one or the other.
No,
right?
It's a great question, and the listeners, we weren't able to agree on non-cost items and cost items.
Okay. So good. So what my thing is the cost items, which would be raises, right? You get, and Steve alluded to this, where you get the mayor, you get city officials, we support the police, we back the blue, blah, 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 blah. Okay, then why are we going to arbitration? Mm-hmm. If you really support us, why are we going to arbitration? Because, you got both sides want something, and everybody's, both sides are going to ask for the moon. But if you really support police, you'll come to a happy medium and you give the police what they deserve, right? So... And then for Mayor Rick, like you said, Mayor Rick turning, the police should get a hefty raise. That's just a politician talking out of his butt.
I'm hoping.
I'm sorry. I'm saying it. Because you wouldn't go to arbitration if you felt that way. Right? You're the mayor. Yeah. You're the mayor. You make things go.
I was happily. Right? I was happy to hear. How's this? We that are part of the SHOPO leadership were happy to hear that Mayor Rick stated that he felt the police were going to get a healthy raise. But to your point, clearly it wasn't healthy enough for us because we're going to arbitration. So that's
And then, from what I understand, city council got a nice hefty raise last year or wherever it was.
It was a 60,
They're getting,
it was a
and,
60,
and other city officials, and they're getting another one this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And again, boys, if we look at this from the position that they have a lot of work, they're deserving of it, okay, but when you look at the percentages for those people that are working within government, now it's a different government than us, right, Mark? We're not elected and this kind of thing, but it just blows me away, Rick, that we have people say, "Oh, we support the police. We support the police."
No, they don't.
But then when it comes to, okay, well, we need to get paid. We'd like to get paid for what we do, and we're not investment bankers here. We're not hedge fund managers, but we'd like to have a fair competitive wage that maybe beats inflation a little bit, right? And could be comparable with some of the other maybe union trades that are working hard and doing it every day. So,
So you will probably hear folks say you now have a $25,000 bonus to help attract. You have a wage that, in comparison with the private sector, is more than above the median, and that's entry, let alone what folks are able to earn as, with more time on the job or incentives. You now have a 3-day work week. You get 4 days off of a week. So I'm only speculating what some folks may be thinking when we talk about compensation, benefits, and more.
Sure.
So thoughts, if folks have those thoughts.
One of the things, and the city likes to do this, and they'd like to do a lot of them, and Steve could attest to this. One of the things you mentioned, you're above the median of what everybody else is making, right?
I'm not saying.
No, I'm saying. But
yes,
that's going to be an argument, right?
Right.
And that's the problem. This is not a median job. This is not a normal job that people will go 9 to 5 and clock in and out. This is a totally different job where you might not come home at night. You're away from your family for hours and for days sometimes, right? It's not a normal median job. So there's the argument on that part, right? So the $25,000 bonus, we're doing it to attract, right? To get recruitment, right? By the time the city and the state and everybody takes out their taxes, and it's over a period of time. They don't get that $25,000 right away. It's over a period of time, right?
5 years.
And remember that $25K was a decision with Chief Joe and his leaders on Honolulu PD. That's coming out of, let's say, HPD's direct coffers. They made that decision. That's not something that is coming out of, per se, the county when it comes to salaries. And Mark, I think we just graduated. We're putting out, I think, 20 new cops. 20 new cops was the most recent graduating class, and those folks will be part of that process. And to Mark's point, I don't have all the info in front of me, but it's done over a period of, I think, under 3 years. That $25,000 is given in let's say chunks of like 3 chunks, depending on what's accomplished. And Mark, I'll tell you something, but I feel that it's needed because that's what other agencies are doing.
Right.
And I'll say this to your listeners: you can look what cops make on the West Coast is more than what we make here in the different counties in Hawaii, Mark. Mark and Rick, by probably $25K, $30K, and the cost of living isn't as much. And then Rick, to just tie in what you were saying too about the 3-day work week, I understand the days are less, but the hours worked are still going to be 40. Yeah, and we did that again to try to retain balance, and that was between the union and HPD leadership. And then we're working that out with other counties as well with the work weeks and schedules.
Is there a deadline for arbitration, not just the contract expiration?
So there's some nuances about when things start and when they finish and this kind of thing. But we're hopefully going to be starting arbitration soon. And then once we get going, there's parameters on how quickly it needs to finish. The bottom line is, as a labor union representing the men and women in the different counties, we don't want to be working without a contract for that long. We've gotten roped into that in previous contracts where cops are working for a year before they qualify for raises and whatnot, and we're not putting up with that this go around. It's just not right. And the public needs to know we can't strike. We can't strike, right? And we can't strike. So whether we get a contract terms or not, Rick, we're coming to work every day. Yeah.
I want to put a little exclamation point on this, and we'll cover it when we come back. Best and worst states for police officers in 2025. My 10 to your 20 that we can determine where Hawaii ranks. And when we come back, we'll converse, share, and take your telephone calls at 521-8383.
It's the SHOPO Hour on News Radio 830 KHVH.
Once again, welcome back. It is the SHOPO Hour, and it is News Radio 830 KHVH. By the way, want to acknowledge Brother Nick. Unfortunately, could not be a part of the program today, but will on the next program. You mentioned Brother Bobby. Always a seat at the table whenever available, but as you mentioned, quite the frenetic schedule for Brother Bobby. And just want to pick up where I left off, best and worst states for police officers in 2025. It is Wallet Hub. They do exhaustive studies in all areas. I'm just going to share this and see what you think. With National Police Week starting on May 11th and the median annual salary for a police officer reaching over $77,000, this is there nationwide. The report is 25's best and worst states to be a police officer. And they have their specific metrics that they utilized. We can get into that in a moment. But the best states in which to be a police officer, the top 5, Maryland, D.C., Illinois, Connecticut, and California. The worst states for police officers, the bottom 5, I just can't do math, Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas, Nevada, Hawaii.
Initially, Rick, when you say that, when are you ever going to hear Arkansas, Alabama, and Hawaii in the same sentence ever?
In this one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it's really kind
what's the parameters? I mean, is
So
salary have a lot to do with it?
Well, I'm going to go through just a few of what they have here. D.C. has the most, and they are ranked 4th. They have the most police and sheriff's patrol officers per 100,000 residents.
Okay,
so that's one metric. Illinois has the highest median annual wage, and they come in at number 3, adjusted for a cost of living, which is two times higher than Mississippi, which has the lowest. Rhode Island has a few individuals killed by police per 1 million residents. And that's 14 times fewer than in New Mexico. Never knew that. And so there are others like this. D.C., highest state and local police protection expenses per capita, which is 4.2 times higher than in Kentucky, who has the lowest. So, and it goes on with more metrics of how they conducted the study. But the bottom line, it's in all of this, Hawaii is second to last technically because they include D.C. Alaska is bottom of the rung.
This might be a little random, Mark. I know when they mentioned Nevada, you seemed surprised. I saw something the other day. The Nevada Highway Patrol, they have over 50% vacancies. They're in a real serious crisis over there at the Highway Patrol for Nevada. So I know that's just random, but
it looked like that survey is big on like money and vacancies, right? So, well, staffing. If you got staffing, it's good, which is any place. But
it would be beneficial then to literally call the entire survey of what the methodology was.
Yeah.
These were just highlights. But that said, at least there is a semi-transparent and attributable source of where the findings came.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still distressing. I mean, Hawaii, in other areas, worst roads, worst.
Yep.
We're at the top of those worst lists as well. Our police, and it kind of dovetail in our last discussion. Why are we in arbitration?
Because and the answer is because we could not come to terms on cost and non-cost items.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just baffling.
And now that you go into arbitration, I highly doubt that the contract will be done by the time this old one's finished. Correct?
It's actually funny that you bring that up, Mark. Bobby's been adamant about moving this along, so when the current contract expires, we're going to hopefully be as close as we can. We're not going to wait. I remember when he first took over and we had a new board, he was adamant about having our members not wait a year before the new contract kicks in because steps for certain cops were passed over. So this was a big priority for him and our state board. So we're going to try to, with what we've done so far, we're trying to get it tied in as quickly as possible. Probably the fastest it's ever going to be, actually, Mark.
Okay,
but that's a good point. Yeah, contract is up the end of June.
Yeah, and if he goes beyond that, the city makes out because the city's not paying because they're in arbitration. So they go, everything freezes from the old contract as far as monies.
Correct.
So it pays for the city to mess around.
How long has the process been going on?
Sure. We started this. We started talking probably about 12 months ago. Not quite. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. And just to remind all the listeners is whether cops are working in Maui or they're working on Kauai or the Big Island or in Honolulu, we have the same pay rate of pay. So when we sit down at the table, we're sitting down with reps from all 4 counties. Mark, like not just Honolulu specifically or Kauai. When it comes to this kind of thing, all the counties have a seat at the table. They all have a say. They all bring their people, and we navigate it from there.
It's 7:44 already. I'd like to, if I could, jump a bit over to the ledge because session ended Friday, but there are still some activities, which includes the probable special session. So is there anything out of this session that stood out for SHOPO in regard to virtually anything, pass or fail?
Yeah, Ray, if I could, and if you let me, Gene Ward, just for a second. Gene Ward was always a supporter of men and women that wore the uniform. I had a personal opportunity to meet him and speak with him a couple years back. He invited me and Bobby to a meeting of his constituents out there in Hawaii. And I had an opportunity to, along with Bobby, to actually see how he interacted with his constituents. I found him to be genuine, gracious, articulate, intelligent, a real statesman, so to speak, and not phony. I'm talking genuine and sincere. And Rick, I have a regret. He actually called and left a message for me, and I didn't get a chance to return it. And I didn't know he was ill. And then I heard from a lot of people that he had passed away. And that was one individual that worked in government that I think did it for the right reasons, the right way, and with the level of humility. And in the short time I knew him, I'm going to miss him. And he was a friend of many, but he was definitely a friend of the police. And I apologize, Rick, I'm taking this in a different direction. But when you said Gene Ward, it stuck with me because I didn't get to call him back.
On that note, we can attend at 10 a.m. today, and I thank Olelo, Channel 54, for presenting it for those of us that aren't available to leave and physically be in Hawaii today. But I've shared this on the air. Gene was one of the first that I had met. And he immediately recruited me to run for office. It was like, hi, I'm Rick, and Gene, nice to meet you. Oh, good. Where do you live? I live in the downtown area. Oh, good. You need to run against this. So you file your papers. And he was all, and that's 30 years ago. And he had that pace to him all the time. I'm glad you used the word statesman. There was no calculation, premeditation. It was just him. Agree with everything? No. But you're right. He represented, and he never lost. People wanted him back. They saw the same things.
I don't know who's going to fill his shoes in the ledge. How's this? I think it's probably going to be Rick next to impossible. But yeah, man, he was just such a unique individual.
Yeah.
Really.
Absolutely.
I wish I had an opportunity to know him longer. I really do.
No doubt. I'm going to open up. I opened up the phones.
Oh, sure.
We'll see if we've got some calls. But also, I do want to follow up on legislation that either passed or failed that had impact to SHOPO. Dave, Waikiki, good morning. You're on the SHOPO Hour. Once again, Dave, you're on the SHOPO Hour. Good morning.
Good morning. Would like to ask if the police SHOPO boys would be advocating for, in their arbitration, to get money from rail. The amount of money that's being spent on rail is so huge that you could double every police officer's salary for a fraction of what they're spending on the rail. And it's a monstrosity that nobody's writing. Probably nobody ever will, because they're building into obsolescence. How about SHOPO go after the rail money? The mayor is throwing it down the toilet with the rail, and he's neglecting the police force. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you for the call, Dave. Gents?
Well, it's totally different allocated monies from what I could see. But what I could get out of that call is, if they got to raise the excise tax to pay the police, do it. You know.
I appreciate Dave's participation, because I think the takeaway is, obviously he's not a fan of rail, but he's at least considering that the cops that do the job every day are deserving. And hey, if we can take some money from rail, why not give it to the police? I don't want to speak for our lawyer team that helps us with negotiations, and our economist. I don't know if they're going to highlight that as something when we go into arbitration. But thanks, Dave. Thanks for your call and participation.
You're right about appropriation. What funds rail the most is GET. GET is a state tax. There was an authorization in the ledge signed by then Governor Linda Lingle, which allowed the surcharge to be collected by the city. But it's dedicated funds that need to be applied in that regard. However, there's a ton of money going on. We have over a $3 billion annual budget for an island that has under 1 million people. $3 billion. There's money.
You know what we need?
Anybody says we don't have the money,
We got the money.
they got the money.
We need Doge. We need Elon Musk to come in with his brainiacs and tear this place apart.
And that will never happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're looking around going,
There'll be a lot of people going to jail.
federal government's one thing. Hawaii, no.
KHVH Honolulu, an iHeart radio station. It's the SHOPO Hour on News Radio 830 KHVH.
I, again, want to go back a little bit with initiatives in the House and Senate, and signed or not. One, online sports betting. I know that Chief Joe, Mayor, were against, Did SHOPO even have a position on?
No, I don't recall. No, that's not that doesn't stand out to me.
Assault weapons ban, which died, but thoughts on that particular bill?
That was the bill that Ron Kochi got involved with, right? He was that deciding factor on Kauai. A lot of our SHOPO members and their families enjoy firearms. And Carl Rhodes was pushing that, right? Let me just say this for the listeners, okay?
Right.
Look, we brought him up before. SHOPO would be happy to engage in productive conversations with Mr. Carl Rhodes when it comes to matters of public safety. He may think his heart is in the right place, but I can assure you, as somebody that wears the uniform, I would tell him personally, you're misguided and misinformed. And I would encourage him, when he puts out future legislation or stand behind things, speak to people that are in positions of power and authority already within the community related to public safety. Let us help you with that. Carl Rhodes was also about bail reform. Sorry, I know he was a part of, maybe my brain is working, Rick, and I'm sorry I've been up all night. When you talk about that assault weapons ban, he was behind that because the motivation, I believe, if I understand it correctly, is he wants to prevent mass shootings. Right.
That was definitely cited.
Yeah, and that's, to me, that's just a way to get the whole thing started, right? But SHOPO does not feel that Carl Rhodes has a clear understanding of how to keep the community safe, and we're happy to work with him on that, right, Mark?
Yeah, well, I always said it. All these legislators, and they need to talk to people before they start putting these stupid bills out. Go talk to law enforcement and work together on it.
Rick, there was another one related to, it wasn't called bail reform, and I'm sorry I can't think of it, but they were trying to push this indirectly, this whole thing about, and I wish I was a little bit more prepared. It was not directly called bail reform, but it was something tied in with, if people didn't have a certain income level, they were trying to do this workaround, Rick, with trying to do this no bail for stuff. Unfortunately, that didn't go anywhere.
That was an initiative.
Remember that? I apologize. I can't.
They always
think
pull
of it
that every
clearly,
session. They pull that
this
crap.
Whole thing. Yeah. No.
Yeah, because they're saying bail is against the less fortunate or the people that don't make money, which is a bunch of BS.
757 rather. Richard Manoa. I'm afraid we have just a few moments, but I'm glad you're on the air. Richard Manoa, just a few moments, but thank you for your call.
Yeah, wanted to talk about, a lot of people don't know, like the politicians, the judiciary, the voted politicians, they only have to work 4 years and they retire with high 3, where the police have to work 20 years minimum to get retirement.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Thank you for the statement. A few minutes remaining, boys. Thank you, Richard.
To get full retirement, members prior to 2012 had to work 25 years. Now they're working 30. Thank you for your participation, your comment. There are positions within government that they don't have to contribute and they still get a pension. I think the judges are in that group. I don't want to misspeak, but he's not wrong. Yeah. You know, our members get 13%. They get money taken out. There are people that come to work, okay, and they do it for a few years like he was talking about, and they're going to get a pension, but yet they've never contributed to it. He's not wrong.
I'm glancing at Mark.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
I always
Mark's
said,
smiling. No,
I
he's not
always
wrong.
said these politicians, if you're in office, you get benefits. When you leave, you get nothing because you're doing it as a public service. But they're making a career out of it and just screwing the public.
We have literally just a few moments. I got to bring it up, and that has to do about the morons who set fire to the Wahiawa District Park Playground after it was refurbished.
The arson case. Yeah.
And the arson case there. And just want to get your reaction, and literally just a couple of moments.
So when that call comes in real quick, gang, HFD is going to show up. They're going to put the fire out as safely as possible. There's going to be a co-response. the fire leadership is going to determine then if they felt that this was arson or if it was just something else. HFD determined it was arson. We're going to investigate, and hopefully we can find out who did it.
And hold them for us.
100%.
Because unreal. Mark.
Oh, let's see what happens when they catch this guy. What's the judges and prosecutors going to do about it?
I could have.
Right?
I could.
There you go.
I guess I could have answered that myself. Final thought. I literally 10 seconds.
NFL going to be in D.C.?
Yep.
Running backs are going to go first because they're going to run away from crime.
Oh, my goodness, Steve Keogh.
That's pretty good. Rick, what, we're on for the 19th then?
Yes.
Okay.
But we got to go. Okay. Gentlemen, thank you.